Direct from our newsroom in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Richard C. Hartlett at the United Nations, Lew Wood in Macomb, Mississippi, Hughes Rudd in Chicago, Sam Zellman in Los Angeles, Roger Mudd in Washington, and Bill Plant in Brooklyn.
Good evening.
President Nixon has made his first public appearance since the burglary reported at NPP headquarters. Amid calls for resignation, the president has remained silent until a press conference today where he addressed remarks made by Senator George Wallace.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Crisis hit the financial world as the Yasuda Holdings Corporation stocks entered freefall, following a corruption-turned-murder investigation among the Yasuda family at the top of the Zaibatsu megacorporation. Yasuda is liquidating assets in China, Vietnam, and the home islands. Experts predict that other Zaibatsus may collapse within the week.
In a moment, Nazi documents that claim Pius XII favored the Axis in World War II.
Hiya, Mr. Flintstone.
Greetings, Rocky, my boy. Pack of Winstons, please.
Oh, you like them Winston cigarettes, huh, Mr. Flintstone?
But of course, they really got something.
You bet your life. Folks who really enjoy smoking know it's what's up front that counts. And that's where Winston steps out ahead of the crowd with their exclusive filter blend. Choice golden tobaccos, specially selected and specially processed for filter smoke.
Hold it.
What you mean?
What are you pitching Winstons at me for? You know I never smoke nothing else.
Just practicing, Mr. Flintstone. Everybody knows that.
Winston tastes good, like a cigarette should.
Yeah.
See you soon, Rocky.
In Macomb, Mississippi today, a group of 20 Negro leaders cracked that town's rigid segregation barriers for the first time in living memory. The Negroes received some icy stares when they entered the formerly all-white restaurants and motels, but they were served without comment. In the past, Macomb has been a center of violent racial turmoil in Mississippi, but the mayor of the town and many business leaders urged peaceful compliance with the civil rights law. Well, behind the peace that came to Macomb today also is a just-formed local group called the Citizens for Progress. CBS News correspondent Lew Wood talked with the chairman of the Citizens Group, Macomb attorney Robert Brumfield. Here's his report.
The rash of bombings and church burnings and terrorism in recent months around this southwestern Mississippi community has given it the reputation of being one of the toughest and most unyielding in racial matters. And one wondered where its responsible citizens were. Well, they have finally spoken out publicly for the first time. After a massive effort just in advance of the testing of civil rights facilities by the Negroes, an ad appeared just before the testing in the local newspaper under the title Citizens for Progress. And it calls for a return and a restoration of peace and adherence to law and order and compliance with the law of the land. And it's signed by 650 or more local citizens of Macomb and the surrounding area. The chairman of the Citizens for Progress is Mr. Robert Brumfield. Mr. Brumfield, just how did this come about?
None of us like the Civil Rights Act. Nevertheless, the same is now the law of the land, and we as law-abiding citizens feel that we must learn to live within the laws of the United States in spite of personal difficulties.
However, the Civil Rights Act has been met with considerable resistance by others, such as George Lincoln Rockwell, member of the Yaqueite faction of the National Progressive Party.
Virginia, and the main thing that we are fighting for is the preservation of the white race. We think the white race is what has made possible the American constitutional republic, which we think is the greatest form of government in the world.
What do you think about the present policies the administration is having in regard to the colored people?
Well, I think it's insane. I think that the policy has brought on chaos and almost revolution in this country, and instead of putting on the brakes, we're adding more of what caused the trouble in the first place.
Well, Mr. Brumfield, has the possibility of intimidation been a factor in making it so difficult for citizens to speak out publicly up until now?
Quite frankly, that is possible.
Then that may be the key to the entire question. But finally, the responsible citizens of the Macomb area have spoken out publicly, and they've taken the bull by the horns. And Macomb may now see an end to its racial troubles. This is CBS News correspondent Lou Wood in Macomb, Mississippi.
A woman correspondent who had an interview with a large group, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today, said that Mr. Hoover said that Martin Luther King is the most notorious liar in the country. He was angered, it was said, because King has claimed that FBI agents in Albany, Georgia, would take no action on civil rights complaints because they themselves are Southerners.
In what is becoming an increasingly common story, another terror attack has been carried out by Boer soldiers. At a recent protest against the German occupation of Africa, German-backed Boer militias opened fire on the crowd. By the time South African forces arrived, an estimated 500 natives were killed, raped, or enslaved. Repeated atrocities committed by the Boers has increased support for U.S. intervention in the South African conflict.
That's the way it is. Monday, November 25th, 1963. This is Walter Cronkite. Good night.
Enjoy the fun when the Beverly Hillbillies treat a teenage singing sensation like a poverty-stricken refugee tonight on the CBS television network.